what to expect this fall and how to prepare. And so that's quite a big task as far as knowing ChatGPT and generative AI and all that's been going on for the last 7 months or so. And we'll talk about what's been happening and get us into the here and now, and then start thinking forward toward fall. And so we want to make this an active session as much as possible. So we'll have moments where we'll pause, we'll use different tools within Zoom like chat. Please keep using throughout. We've got a team of folks here that'll be looking at your comments and questions and try and help facilitate that. But also you can comment to each other. For the most part, make sure that you go ahead and have chat set to send to everyone. So that'll go across the whole group. We just use chat. We don't use the Q&A feature. So comment and question freely just in the chat channel there. We'll also be going out to use a Padlet. We'll direct you through that. We'll be giving you links within the chat, and you can just follow those links, and we'll go back and forth between the two, the slide deck that is, and going into Padlet and another tool. All right, so let me get into introductions here. I'm Brett Christie, VP for Educational Innovation and Inclusivity at Alchemy. Been in that role a few years now, and before that, my role was in higher education, primarily in the Cal State University system at the campus level, system level, as a faculty first, and then leading faculty development efforts again at the campus and system level, and involved across all range of topics, but probably most well known for universal design for learning efforts, which has been a passion of mine since 2004. Pleased to have a couple colleagues here with me today who will share their respective efforts. And let's see, I'll go to the far right first and introduce Heather. Heather's an instructional designer at Tidewater Community College, which is part of the Virginia Community College system. She's also a certified online instructor and a certified Quality Matters peer reviewer. And I've gotten to know Heather over the last few months, and I've also seen Heather's work and engagement around this topic because she's also a co-moderator for the EDUCAUSE AI community group, which last I checked was maybe 400. And of course, that's growing very quickly and has been very active. And they also had sort of an AI think tank meeting, if you will, last week in Boulder, Colorado. So she's very engaged in the topic. And then Lorna Gonzalez, who I've known for about 5 years now, Director of Digital Learning at CSU Channel Islands, one of the 3 campuses in the Cal State system. And I know several folks in her teaching, learning, and innovation unit, and they just do fabulous work. It's always so thoughtful and creative and engaging. And so she'll share one of those efforts today that they're doing as far as their summer residency in AI. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the content of the presentation. So what I want to do to just get a pulse check going is do a quick answer garden. So if you'll go to the link that's going into the chat, share your current sentiments regarding AI. I chose that word because it can be thoughts, feelings, etc. And I have it set up so that each of your posts or submissions would be 20 characters or less, because they should be individual words or phrases, short phrases, because we want to see what forms across the group. So I will jump to the answer garden as well and meet you there. This is a great little free tool, and I know you can do these types of things in Poll Everywhere and Mentimeter. This one tends to be the easiest to use for us, at least. Okay, let's see, that's loading. Hasn't taken this long before. Also haven't taken 500 people in there before. Let's see, 622. Let's give it another moment here. There we go. I'll do an occasional refresh so that we'll see the tag cloud continue to form. And as you know, the most frequent responses will start to stand out. And I always like to just move my window up a little bit so you don't have to see any ads. That comes with this being a free application. Okay, and it's processing. There we go. Curious. I like that because to me, it senses openness. There can be curious about the light side or the dark side, but hopefully that's an openness. Excited, I like that. And the trend has been through spring, more excitement, more anticipation in a positive manner, hopefulness. We will certainly talk about issues related to ChatGPT, even if you're on the excited end of the spectrum, always issues to look out for. intriguing, excitement. You'll see some overlap in these, and I'll do an occasional refresh, and hopefully that'll reload pretty quickly. And we'll take another look or two and see what jumps out, see if there's any changes. Opportunity, overwhelming. We're going to do a check-in on that in a minute. I totally understand the feeling where people can be overwhelmed. Absolutely. Very concerned, yes. Hype exhaustion. FERPA, we're going to talk about some issues around policies, selection of appropriate AI tools, putting sort of parameters and barriers as you select them at the institutional level or at the individual level, just being aware of some of those things. All right. And one last, and then let's move forward and keep covering our content for the day. And hopefully the answer garden worked for you. Chat is always there as a backup if that works better and you want to make any statements in chat, feel free. Okay, not a big change, uncertain. Hopefully we can clarify a few things for you today. Apprehensive. Okay, that middle cluster is where we're going to focus though. Anxiety, yeah, and anxiety can be good to a certain level. It can be motivating, but then again, it can cause exhaustion if there's too much anxiety. All right, thank you. We'll capture that and get it put into the slide with the deck that we'll share with you coming out of this. And then let's move on. And what I want to do is kind of provide a little bit of, I don't know, mindful framing about the topic today. And this relates to what I saw on the tag cloud just then. Is we're in this current state of double disruption is what I'm calling it. And, you know, from 2020, March 2020 forward, we had the pandemic and we had everything that happened certainly in that first year rapidly and then continued on through the second year. And we're still feeling the effects of the pandemic, the result of more and more things being online or across modalities. We know in our research of over 500 faculty that people are trying to keep up already as of September 2022 with our data. They're trying to keep up with these modality shifts that the majority of instructors are teaching 2 to 3 modalities now. Over half said they don't have enough time to teach effectively. And people are burnt out, as you know, from many research reports. So that's pre-ChatGPT. Now you add this new disruption on, people are now having to take this on as a new growth area, understanding area, and development area. And that's quite a bit. And in spring, we saw, winter, we didn't see much because of ChatGPT's launch late in the fall term. But certainly in spring, we saw more and more evolve, and it became a bigger issue in the teaching environment. And now as we have this pause for many people during summer, as far as courses teaching or courses taking, then we have this opportunity to kind of raise awareness and prepare for fall a little bit. But that's quite a lift. And I just want to be mindful and empathetic with what people are facing in that either instructional role or academic champion role, supporting instructors or supporting students. I was part of a webinar very recently this week where the tone was, yeah, it's a lot of work, but you really just need to suck it up and work harder. That statement was made to faculty. I don't agree with that. I agree that faculty should make an effort as best they can, but this is an add-on to what they're already doing. And so we just need to be mindful to lead and support and guide instructors and others through this process most effectively. So that's our approach. And I want people to kind of settle in with that and feel comfortable, even though this is a big, overwhelming topic. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Heather. Oh, I'm sorry, Heather, that's still me.
Yeah, I was.
My fault. I'll do this real quick. So when you registered, you had that question at the bottom in the registration form, what would you like to learn most through this webinar? And so I took about 700 responses. We ended up with about 1,300 registrants, but I did this a few days ago. And I took all of those responses, gleaned those in from an Excel spreadsheet into text format, put them into ChatGPT and asked it to analyze them and give me the top 10 reasons. And then I whittled them down a little bit to the 6 that you see here because there was significant overlap between some of them. But this is a reflection of what you said you would like to learn through this webinar. And we're going to certainly touch on several of those. But as you can guess, that's a big task to cover everything about AI and everything that you asked for. And your responses ran from, very excited, you want to take in all you can, learn all you can, to, one on the extreme end was how to stop it. And I get part of that. I get why you want to, mitigate risk, or that you want to put up parameters and minimize cheating and things like that. But, here's sort of where we'll focus today across these 6 responses that you gave us. Okay. Still me, evolution of AI. I'm going to do this quickly because, again, this is something that's come up so recently for most people to have it be really present on their radar, where in the past it's just been something in the background that you've maybe heard about, but you haven't had a known experience necessarily with it, calling it AI. Going back to the Turing test, this is the earliest development with Alan Turing, and how you can have a human giving questions to a computer and to another human, and then looking at the responses blindly and trying to judge which is from the computer and which is from the human, and eventually getting to the point where you may not tell the difference in most cases. And when that's the majority of cases, then you consider that to be, successful AI. And that's certainly progressed forward. We even have the reverse Turing test, which is reCAPTCHA, where you have a computer trying to distinguish if you are a human as opposed to being another computer. So that's a twist on the Turing test, reCAPTCHA, if you haven't looked at that before. Natural language processing and these neural networks that have been worked on more recently. You've all surely seen IBM and Watson defeating the Jeopardy champions. Our Roomba being sort of one of the most common consumer products. 2012 probably or so was when DJ Roomba was invented. A little Tom Haverford reference for some of you. One of my favorite little clips. And then going forward, DeepMind, looking at using deep neural network to identify or recognize cats in YouTube videos and be able to search and find those and put those all into a category. Now that's kind of a silly task maybe, but it was used to train the algorithms. And then look, they were acquired by Google for $500 million at the time, 10 years ago almost. So that's moving quickly. Google obviously saw a way that could be applied in different ways. And then let's jump forward to November. ChatGPT was launched. That's where it became available to everyone, the free version that everybody could sign up for and start using. And students started using it pretty quickly, instructors somewhat, administrators somewhat, but students are definitely ahead of the curve on the rest of us. Conmigo, I'm going to talk about. That's a very promising one, a great model that I like, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation, and that comes from the Khan Academy. All right. So quick scan there. And then many of you are probably familiar with the Horizon report. It was put out for several years by the New Media Consortium, which is no longer, but now by EDUCAUSE. And of the last 15 years or so, since 2016, they've been focusing on AI as a topic for education. And at first it was a far-term horizon, but in 2019, they were saying in 2 to 3 years, it's going to be mainstream in education. And they weren't too far off. It took about 4 years, but it's here and now. And so with this free report each year, you get a great scan of technologies that are near to far term and what the uses look like now or what they could be in the future. And so it's kind of nice to scan this report every year, and it's free. And I've got the link that is in the chat there for you. And then last, this is a pretty extensive report from the US Office of Educational Technology. And this just came out about a month ago, and you can see some of the areas that are being focused on to try and guide forward movement of AI in appropriate ways and effective ways. And in the presenter notes, if you wanted to access it, we have a summary of this 71-page report. Heather actually used this Ask Your PDF plugin that you can use for ChatGPT 4 and ran the report through that, ran the PDF through that plugin, and was able to come away with the 6 key takeaways and 5 action steps to take from that report. So that's an example of how you can take a large body of work and try and understand the main elements quickly and then be able to dig deeper as you choose to. So we've got that report there for you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Heather.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Did you want to do the Padlet, or we're going to use that later, Brett?
Yeah, let's do that now. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a Padlet pause. Thank you. So what we want to do for the Padlet is have you just go to the first two columns. You'll see 5 columns across a Padlet, but the ones that are numbered 1A and 1B, first 2 columns, share the promise or benefits for education that you're seeing currently for with AI, and then any concerns with AI. And we know some of them obviously right away, but there are some deeper concerns that aren't always in people's minds. You know, there's an obvious one, cheating, but there are many others as well to pay attention to. So jump to the link and we'll all go there together. And these will be anonymous comments, unless you happen to be logged into Padlet, but otherwise these will be anonymous comments. And I have it set up so if somebody makes a comment and you want to like on it, you can do that. You can also comment back. And Padlet did say that they can take an unlimited number of live users, but we'll see what happens again with 681 people. And this will move quickly, I know, with so many of you. So I'm going to just try and scan. And of course, cheating comes up, integrity challenges related to that. Could promote laziness, yes, if not used appropriately. If you don't guide students to use it as a constructive process and have them go through a Socratic dialogue, which we'll talk about briefly, then it could be this lazy shortcut. And people are certainly worried about it turning people into lazier thinkers. So we have to be mindful of that. And some of you are jumping over to column 2. Okay, that's fine. No big deal. Brainstorming, getting started. Let's focus on that side for a minute. Writing samples for students to critique and discuss. Love it. Increased creativity. It can help to spark creativity. It can help you get started. So if there's an inertia issue with staring at a blank screen or a blank page, it can help you. You can put in a topic, or it can ask you questions as well to help you get thinking about your characters, your topics, subtopics, what's your purpose, your outcome. Teaching critical thinking. And so we're seeing people that are saying, yes, it can teach critical thinking. Others saying, well, it can promote laziness. Yes, on both sides, depending on how it's used, absolutely. Quickly build cases. I've used it to build great case studies for students to analyze. To write recommendations letters. Yeah, those are great for you to be able to provide for students, but I know it can be a burden time-wise. So you can have it create sort of the form letter that you can just add in those personalized elements about that student. Let's see, I'm going to try and keep scrolling. Sorry if I don't acknowledge everyone's comments, certainly not possible. Open pedagogy, and that may mean that there's more that can be shared and that can be co-constructed through AI. But now you have access to more content and content development. Use it for lower level tasks, yeah, and then have students challenge themselves at higher levels of blooms, for example. Fewer jobs depends on the jobs, or doing jobs differently. So there's a lot of different dialogue around that, but it could be fewer jobs, but it's certainly going to be, are you somebody who uses AI effectively with your job or is not able to use it? Then that may do something to the job status, let's just say, to be determined. Professional use versus academic use. Let's see. Yeah, cheating, ethical usage. We'll talk about ethical usage, plagiarism, copyright, all those things. Okay, I'm going to ignore 2A and 2B. You got a good start for us there. More integrity challenges, and let's go back to the deck here. This will be available ongoing. So if you're wanting to follow up and learn more, or if you are at your campus wanting to have sessions related to AI, then you can see a lot of these main issues that have been shared, and you can access this Padlet. Okay, and for real.
For real. Thank you, Brett. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go back to what Brett learned through what you all wanted to see in this webinar. And that was one of the number ones was trends and applications of AI in education. So we wanted to cover that specifically. And, you know, artificial intelligence has the potential to transform education, as we're seeing. by providing personalized learning, improving student outcomes, enabling educators to be more effective. And so some of the trends and applications that are out there is personalized learning. AI can help personalize learning by analyzing student data and providing customized learning paths based on their strengths and their weaknesses. Another area is smart content. AI can help create and curate content that's tailored to an individual student's needs and learning styles, and it can generate text, images, even videos, reducing time and effort required to produce high quality materials. It can provide intelligent tutoring. AI-powered tutoring systems can provide students with personalized feedback and guidance, helping them improve their understanding of the subject matter. And then there's also research and development. AI systems and tools must account for the context of teaching and learning and work well in educational practice. And there are tools that are out there that can help with research and scholarship. And then there's language learning and translation, along with virtual and augmented reality. And a number one I've seen across webinars people are interested in as well are accessibility enhancements. Generative AI is playing a huge role in improving accessibility and contributing to making education more inclusive. Such as text-to-speech, speech-to-text, automatic closed captioning, natural language processing for assistive technologies, and multilingual support to adaptive interfaces and learning tools. We also wanted to cover a quick poll that EDUCAUSE did in back in April of 2023. I believe we're going to drop that link in the chat for you. But they asked to describe the use of generative AI in their workplace, and respondents highlighted use cases clustering around these 4 icons that you see. And one was dreaming, helping you think. And so generative AI can help you brainstorm. It can help you get unstuck. It can help summarize, and it can help synthesize complex content. And it can help in research and analysis. Another area was drudgery, lightening your load. That could be from helping you create an email and communication to reviewing and proofreading materials. Another area was design. It's helped building your content. So you can, there's generative AI applications out there that can help you create presentations and slides and content. Creating course materials such as exams and quizzes and discussion prompts. I know I've had where I've trying to come up with a great discussion, and I've used generative AI to help brainstorm some really, really good ideas for discussion prompts. And then there's also the development, the advancing of your work, right? So generative AI can help create your lesson plans and project plans. And then, so now we're going to move on to the main large language models that are out there. And I recently read an article, and I follow Ethan Mollick and Lilac Mollick from the Wharton School, and he has some great information. He's on Twitter, he's on LinkedIn, he has his own Substack, One Useful Thing. I strongly suggest that if you haven't, that you follow Ethan, but he has some great insight. And he has a nice list of these large language models, and he describes them as prediction machines that have studied the content of the web, and it develops connections between words and concepts. And it doesn't mean that it understands words and concepts, but it does make connections. And so these large language models try to predict what should come next in terms of text. And then so these models are text predictors. So, you know, when you write your email, it wants to finish your sentence for you. You just hit tab and it finishes your sentence for you. I think of it as a text predictor on steroids. So these are the main models that are currently out there. There's the ChatGPT 3.5. That's the one that dropped in November. Actually, 3 dropped, and then shortly after that, 3.5. It is the free version of ChatGPT. It's fast, but it's not connected to the internet. However, I've heard through the grapevine that they are going to connect it to Bing. And then there's ChatGPT 4, which is the newest version. It is available for free. It's very powerful, and it's the most capable of models. It has data privacy. You can turn off or on the history. So if you do not want your history saved, it will erase it after 30 days. But you know, think about it, they have 30 days to utilize the information, but at any rate, 4.0 is very powerful. It also has the option of utilizing hundreds of plugins, which was right now, I think they're up to 520 plugins that are available through GPT-4. And then there's Bing AI. It is connected to the internet. I meant to say ChatGPT-4 is connected to the internet. It's connected through Bing as well. So, and then Bing AI, the large language model, it's connected to the internet. And it has 3 modes. It has a creative, predictive, or precise, and balanced. If you use the creative mode, you have the opportunity to use ChatGPT-4 for free, and Bing AI is free. So I strongly suggest experimenting with that. And then there's Google Bard. This is Google's large language model. It is connected to the internet, and it does cite its information, which is really nice. And Bing AI will cite as well, but Bard will cite. It's still in the beta testing, so you can have access to it. You just send your email in and you can get access. And Claude is the other large language model. It is by Anthropic. It is not connected to the internet, but it's very good at writing tasks, and it supports over 70,000 words, which means you can paste a large amount of content in its prompting space, where some of these other models, you're limited in how much you can provide to it. They have chosen not to connect to the internet to prevent it from being exposed to what they call harmful or misleading information. They also believe that it's important to maintain Claude's privacy and security. So who knows, that might change, but right now that's how it is, and it's actually still under development. I'm on their waiting list, but I haven't been accepted in yet. Next, we want to talk about some tools that are generated AI. We have Citation Gecko. This research tool, AI research tool, shows the connection between source and subsequent citations, and the way that it makes you remember. It's sticky. And then another really good tool is Research Rabbit, which provides you a web of related topics. There's other ones, so feel free, if you've utilized other tools out there for your research and scholarship, to drop them into the chat. We just don't have the time to go over the litany of apps that are out there. And then another great tool that you can use is called Future Tools. Next slide, thank you. And it is an aggregator of over 5,300 AI tools for over 1,500 types of tasks. A lot. Put it in perspective. In the month of March, just March alone, over 950 AI tools, it might even be higher than that, but over 950 AI tools dropped and were deployed. So this tool here, Future Tools, can help you identify different areas and it will show you what AI tools are available for that particular area. And there's some other ones, so you can talk about them in the chat. There's one called, there's an IA for that at any rate. So Brett, if you want to take over the next couple of slides.
Yeah, and loving the chat, by the way, folks, and all the peer dialogue and peer support in explaining, connected to the internet versus not connected. I'm glad that happened.
Thank you.
Yeah, and let's see what else. There was something else. Yeah, the Turnitin data that came out last night. I was tempted to try and put that in here as well, but there's already so much. But
there's just so much
talking about it, so go for it. So I just want to talk about Conmigo as a great example. So again, from Khan Academy, Salman Khan, I think he has an amazing vision for teaching and learning. And so they are rolling out Conmigo as their chatbot, if you will, and that works as a virtual tutor. In the student case here, in a couple examples, a student might just be trying to get the answer. They don't care about the learning process, just give me the answer. But there's this more Socratic dialogue that can take place. And that's what Conmigo is trying to set up, is this learning experience with a tutor, because the research shows that if given one-to-one tutor support, everyone will be successful. Everyone will succeed so much higher than without that support. But there's not scale of resources to be able to have one-on-one tutors, where this is a possibility of at least having a virtual one-on-one tutor. So this is a very promising model here. You can see a couple student type experiences based on different assignments, math versus writing, and how it helps to jumpstart the students' creative process and get them thinking about questions that could then guide them to developing their work effectively. So that's just a snapshot. And then on the instructional side, how can it be a virtual teaching assistant? I've been playing around with that quite a bit, and I know others have, is how can you get it to help you start developing resources rather than starting from scratch, or rather than doing a Google search and getting this long list of things that you need to weed through? How can you get it to at least do that first pass of what you can consider and then refine and develop based on your knowledge and expertise? So it can be a great load lifter in this way. So this is just a K through 12 scenario snapshot that Conmigo has. And that's, you can get on their waiting list. That's coming out in the near future. So I would encourage people to think about that model of virtual tutor, virtual teaching assistant. And it's not always about assessment. It can be about learning. So if then certain situations for sure. Okay, and then things to watch out for. Back to Heather.
Yeah, so since GPT is based off of internet databases, the internet, it has biases. It lacks intuition and empathy. A big one, we need to be careful of data privacy and security risk, right? Just yesterday, I think it was, or maybe the day before, over 100,000 ChatGPT accounts were breached. I don't know if you've seen that, but that happened. But that was between June of 2022 up until May of this year. They were breached on the dark web, and so that had OpenAI change and increase their security and their data privacy, they now have a two-factor authentication and other security measures in place. But this just goes to show us that with the rise of ChatGPT and more people using it, that we really need to pay attention to protecting our credentials, right? Another thing to watch out for GPT is it likes to lie. They call it hallucinate. It's getting better, but it's still, it sounds very, very plausible. If you are not a subject matter expert, AKA your students, and they start using this, you will be able to tell that the information given is not accurate. But a student, not being a subject matter, reading the generated output is going to think, oh, this is fantastic. And so we'll talk a little bit about that later, but it does hallucinate. So it does not always tell you the truth. And there are some ethical concerns about intellectual property, and there needs to be guidance on how to use it effectively. So, what now for educators? Next slide. Thank you. Here are some suggestions, excuse me. Really start exploring with the tools. Start with ChatGPT 3.5. It's free to use. And input your materials. If you're an educator and you're curious on how an assignment you have and what an output might look like from ChatGPT, go ahead and put it in the prompt bar and see what it gives you. You will find that while it can write essays, it tends not to do very well in transitions. It uses the same phrases over and over again. So we suggest that you play with the different tools, being AI, Google and ChatGPT. Take a look at your assessments. Try to see if you can get to the higher order thinking skills of create and synthesis, analysis and evaluation. Using more reflective, or in addition to using reflective exercises and authentic assessments that mean something to the student, make it meaningful to the learner to help them make connections to the work that they're going to be encountering. And also modularize your assignments. So when I say that, I mean, have them show their work at every step, maybe small, break down a huge assessment, summative assessment, and break it down into smaller parts along the semester. And the other one is formative assessments. And also another good idea is to find out through industry and the community and other stakeholders how AI is being used in your field and whether it's effective and how it's being used in the workforce. And we've mentioned briefly about prompting to get generative AI to respond like ChatGPT. And there are tons of ways that people are saying that you should prompt. And really it's just going to be a matter of you getting in there. And we've put together this nice little graphic for you. Is you want to give the AI a role. You're an expert in psychology, or you're an expert instructional designer, whatever it may be. So you want it to act as that particular role. Give it a task to do. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And then tell it how you want it presented to you, in bullet points, in a table, in a graph. And then we've added refinements to those. So the more detailed you can be with your prompt when you initially start, the better. But, some of the refinements might be adding tone, consider diversity. Another in the task area would be consider the learner's level of learning. Where are they? 10th grader? Or are we talking higher education? And then another refinement, say for the format, is you consider the word limit that you're looking for, no longer than. But it's going to be, it'll take time to get the gist of how to write a really good prompt, but this is where critical thinking does come into play, because you have to critically think exactly, what outcome do you want from your prompt? What is it that you're trying to get at? And this is just a guide. Yeah, Brett?
I got sucked in by the chat. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, just a guide, and there were cheat sheets and other acronyms out there.
Oh yeah, there. I'm glad people are talking about it in the chat, because there are, everyone has their way, and so it's just going to be a matter of figuring it out really and start playing with it. So, another what now educators, start day one setting expectations with your students. Don't wait until you feel like you're an expert on AI. We're all in this together. We're all learning. So let's all collaborate and learn from each other, and especially with your students, and discuss with your students, how are they using it? Because they are using it. They might not be using ChatGPT, but there are other AI tools out there for students, specifically geared towards students. What do they think about it? Why are they using it? Help them. And you could even help them reconfigure an assignment perhaps for you using generative AI. Help them navigate the AI tools. And you want to, make sure that they fact check everything, let them know it hallucinates, it can lie to you. And especially when it comes to citations, ChatGPT, if it's connected to the internet, might be able to give you some good citations. But if you're using the free version of Chat and you ask for citations, it'll make them up. And so if you go try to look them up, you won't be able to find some of them. I mean, some of them you might be able to, the name might be different or the date might be different, but you want to be careful with that. There are critical media literacy guides. You see there's a link there. When you get the slide deck, you'll be able to go out there, but edtechbooks.org. And there's a whole bunch of questions that you as a person looking at these tools need to ask yourself and students need to ask. It's a great time to discuss the code of conduct, plagiarism, and academic dishonesty and what that means to them. Why do they need to know? Make it valuable to the learner. It's no longer, I don't think we have, we can no longer say, just read your syllabus. There's an academic policy and code of conduct in there. We need to address it. And we need to also let them know that just copying and pasting generated content, AI generated content is considered plagiarism. Many students don't know that, and that APA and MLA both have guidelines, citation guidelines as well. And discuss with students your view on using ChatGPT or generative AI tools in your course. Decide on your own writing policies and guidelines. Are you going to use it for your assignments or are you not going to have it? And set expectations in your syllabus, which we'll show here in just a moment. But the number one thing is we need to build our relationships with our students. We need to make those connections with our students.
That one I saw show up in the chat just a moment ago. I think Kristen and others were definitely saying this is an opportunity to learn alongside your students.
Yes, absolutely.
It's becoming a big factor. And for them, it's going to be very long-term. It's going to be part of the workforce they're soon going into. So definitely a good learning moment together.
Yeah, I mean, AI is out there already in the workforce. So
yeah. Heather, I want to do just a time check. So
okay.
What we propped up here is a sample syllabus AI statement, but let's go ahead and put in the next thing into chat, which I think somebody already shared. I'm trying to remember who, but thank you for doing that in the chat. There is this crowdsourced Google Doc where there are 43 and counting policies that people have shared that are at the course, program, and institutional level. So that can help you as an instructor or an institution or program to think about policies that you might develop heading into fall or beyond. So I see that a couple times in there. Great. And for administrators, just real quick, communication obviously is always key, considering all your stakeholders. It's not just top down, bottom up, side to side, how it impacts everybody, and making it either an AI task force or is there an existing committee, academic technology or otherwise, that this would become part of. It certainly can use a strategy. So look for that document that we shared for some of those strategies that might be there. How is AI literacy part of the curriculum, the common experience for students? Is it part of first year? Wherever they're getting their information literacy? And then the vetting process for tools, we wanted to touch on briefly. There are some good efforts to create guidelines for vetting these tools, those that are safe and most appropriate, most accessible to use, and how to select those. So rubrics for selection, and then there will be a list of vetted tools and why those were given green light versus red light. And so I know that Heather's looking at, was it Avi that's part of that at Toronto?
Yeah, Avi Hyman from the University of Toronto. They're starting to put together a procedure to vet generative or AI tools. Yeah.
Great. More sessions for faculty and staff, especially if you can get faculty, they're sharing the way that they're using and exploring it. We had Zach Justice and Nick Janos from Chico do a session for us a while back, and they did a lot of that sharing how they've been exploring it with their students, and that was very powerful. Real quick on next big thing, and then we'll go on to Lorna.
Yes, so the next big thing to drop is going to be AI writing co-pilots in both Microsoft the 365 Copilot and Google Duet AI, and they will embed generative AI directly into the software, like Word and Google Docs. So, and Ethan Mullock describes it as the button. So when you go into a Google Doc and start it, it says, help me write, and you just click and it's gonna create something for you. So this is the next big thing that is coming down the pipeline. So, you know, it's a race to make these AI systems even more powerful, you know, as it accelerates. We're really going to see AI as emerging, you know, emerging everywhere, into everything and all at once, it seems like. So,
and so you can opt in to have it just show up in your workflow in more ways instead of a separate tool or activity. So that can be exciting. I know for some, it may not be what you want. So it's something you can opt in as a feature or setting. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Heather, for all that. And again, for the continued dialogue in the chat. I'm going to go back to that transcript for sure. There's a lot of great resources. Let's skip this Padlet activity for time's sake. We'll probably go there one more time and put in what we can, but let's just talk about going forward thoughtfully with AI and have Channel Islands share the experience they're in currently. And I know there's a few others out there, and so feel free to keep sharing that in chat. Pepperdine is one I know of, and they've come up in the chat already. So here's Channel Islands.
All right, thank you. Our campus is working on a constellation of support and infrastructure for a digital learning experience that augments the residential model that we have at California State University Channel Islands. And I was asked to share with you today about one specific program that we launched this summer, because it is one piece of a larger intentional digital learning strategy that we've been developing for some time. So we have adopted both a learner's mindset and a researcher's mindset with regard to generative AI and its impacts on not just teaching and learning, but certainly that, of course, but also administrative work and personal interest and the holistic student experience in higher education. And so for a learner's mindset, we knew that we needed to play with some of these tools, just like we do with academic technology before we get into a more formal pilot process. And for a research mindset, we knew that we needed to immerse ourselves in relevant professional and scholarly conversations, to be curious and engage with inquiry, to think critically, to evaluate these tools critically, and to be systematic in the ways that we proceed with this work. Just as there are concerns, there are possibilities, and we recognize all of that. So one of the things that we did was to launch a pilot of an AI residency this summer. And the slide that you're looking at summarizes the goals, format, and commitment of that residency. In this residency, one faculty member and one staff member in residence join the Teaching and Learning Innovations team for focused and supported experimentation and critical evaluation of generative AI. The goals of the residency are very simple. First, we aim to support time and make space to experiment with these tools. Doing so has really helped demystify them and help us see really where the limitations are of them. And also to advance conversations around teaching, learning, scholarship, and administrative work in the age of AI by networking with each other. The format is also modest, with 6 one-hour meetings interspersed with exploration, some play between those meetings, critical evaluation. And to support that, we've purchased some temporary subscriptions to a few of these tools, like the paid version, GPT-4 and Midjourney as examples. In our meetings, which are a lot of fun and way too short, we have a rotation of demonstrations, insight sharing, and facilitated critical conversations. We also have an AI Slack channel to keep the conversation going between meetings. And this channel is actually open to a slightly larger audience or community of colleagues really beyond the residency group, but still within CSUCI. So it's very active. I'm putting in the chat just a clean copy of our first meeting agenda, so you get a little bit of a sense for the format. Our staff in residence, Jerily Petralba, is on fire using ChatGPT to write code for use in the administrative functions of her job. It's not replacing her work in any way, but it is helping her write code and do things that would take her many hours to do, and it's making many of her processes more efficient. Dan Lenz, our faculty in residence, is teaching a summer course with AI. With his students, he's having conversations around shared values, practices, when it maybe is or isn't appropriate to use generative AI for college work and in his class specifically, and those kinds of things. And he's bringing that back to our residency group in our meetings. Also in his capacity as Assistant Director of the Writing and Multiliteracy Center at CSUCI, he's also developing a workshop on generative AI and working with faculty to reimagine their writing assignments in light of this emerging very fast technology. Our residents have also agreed to serve on a panel for a generative AI symposium we have planned for this fall, as well as to write a blog post for our Teaching and Learning Innovations blog. Next slide, please, Brett. Part of our asynchronous residency piece is sharing on a Padlet, where we curate resources and record insights from our time together. One of the incredible things about working in this space in higher education is the tremendous wealth of resources and sharing that other individuals and other institutions are openly doing. We've seen it happen today in the webinar chat, and it's happening in disciplinary listservs and in listservs across higher ed and various spaces. And so we're trying to stay really abreast of those conversations and curate them in our residency space. We read EDUCAUSE posts, contribute and collect examples of syllabus statements. We write knowledge-based articles and guides and things like that. And so while we share many things in our AI Slack channel, the Padlet is more of a curated space where we've found things that are most relevant to our context so far, and we have a little bit of fun as well with things like songs about robots. Next slide, please. And our residency really just launched a few weeks ago. Our second meeting is only today, but we've had so much asynchronous contact in between them. It's already having an initial impact beyond the expressed goals I mentioned earlier of time and space for learning. First, we are building capacity both on and beyond our team. Our residents, for example, expand our capacity to inform and support colleagues around not just these tools, but what is happening across campus. We have also been able to be responsive to situations that inevitably come up around these issues, things like academic integrity. Another example is there was some real concern about AI meeting assistants like Otter AI and Read AI, which can join a video conference meeting with or without invitation. It can record that meeting, it can be shared in various ways. And because we had been testing these tools already, we knew the limitations of them. We know how our technologies work and how these tools integrate with them or not, interact with them. And we were able to educate our community about what they are, how they intersect with our systems and policies, and ways that meeting hosts could retain some control. And like I said previously, learning these tools has helped to demystify them. So I'm putting a link to the one knowledge-based article we wrote about AI meeting assistants in the Zoom chat. We've also been able to brief campus leaders, share relevant resources in a timely way when we receive inquiries, and prepare for the upcoming academic year. So we really hope to expand this residency to include more people. We started small with a pilot, We hope to include students as well as part of this. They are a key stakeholder in this conversation, and we'd like to expand it as soon as this fall. Through the capacity building that we're doing, we're also building a mentoring network across campus around these tools. I've got on the screen there, you can see one tool that we tried out was Midjourney, and you can see a couple of our professional headshots reimagined by the Midjourney tool. And while this was fun in many ways, and we had some fun with it, we also, talked about some of the ethical concerns that arose, including the ways that these tools use artist content without their permission, and the way that they take liberties with beauty standards, with we saw these tools change our colleagues' ethnicities and gender. And so we've had some interesting findings there just in our experimentation. And actually starting with these image generators, these kinds of themes show up in the text generators as well. And it's just more visible in the visual space. And finally, in our briefing with leadership, campus leadership, we were so pleased to hear them acknowledge the complexities of this moment, to show real concern for integrity, privacy, accessibility, and equity, but also to see the possibilities of generative AI for doing some real good in higher education. And one example that our vice provost even shared was the idea of leveraging tools like ChatGPT to demystify some of the college experience and the specialized vocabulary of college. So this is one program that we have underway this summer, and we feel very optimistic as we head into fall, and we need to expand support in so many ways. Thanks, Brett.
Awesome. Thank you, Lorna and TLI folks. I know some are here. All the great work you're doing. There was a request, if possible, to have access at least to view your Padlet. So if so, you could drop it in chat, or if it's something we can provide later, we can put that in the follow-up for folks with the transcript and all that. Something to consider. Okay, so let's, I think folks have been sharing throughout, but if there are any other efforts you're doing at an institutional level to focus on AI going into fall, to prepare toward fall, feel free to put it in chat. We're at time pretty much here. We'll share briefly what we're doing with AI, and some of the work that we're doing with institutions and with faculty and designers is we have these teaching optimizers, we call them, and they're tools, templates, and wizards that help step faculty through creating resources with their courses and do it in a way that's efficient, but based on learning science. And we've recently started adding generative AI as an opt-in button or feature in these optimizers, which, as you can imagine, can make it go even more quickly and gives more access to information that can help shape these resources. So we're doing a lot of prompt engineering, but again, based on learning science, so that this is a good, productive, and safe space to develop those resources for teaching and learning. And so we'll have these available as freemium and otherwise by the end of the summer, and we'll be able to share those out with folks. So that's just a snapshot there. We're using this a lot, and we're considering this in our work for sure, and what people are doing with it and how to guide or assist with that most effectively and appropriately. This is a little bit of how we at Alchemy blend science and magic, is how to do effective prompt engineering. Here are some very simple ones. Here are just 10 examples of what you might use AI for in your work, in your teaching, with students and their learning and their tasks. So there's a download for you, and you can access this resource. All right, and finally, I want to say thank you to everybody. We made it with all of that content and the vastness of AI. Thank you to everybody who participated, close to 700 people throughout, and all of your contributions. The collective mind here is just incredible. But specifically, I want to thank Heather and Lorna for all they did to contribute to the conversation today, and a wonderful session. Thank you so much.